Welcome, Swagatam, Jai Hind. In this video, we make a very simple and preliminary investigation into the relationship between politics and truth. Should there be any connection between politics and truth? Can the practice of politics be completely dissociated or divorced from a commitment to truth? Was Mahatma Gandhi absolutely wrong in saying that politics without principles is an evil, nothing less? Is the present trend of taking the practice of politics beyond the trammels or restricting influence of truth a gain for the country or an insult to the people of India? What is its bearing on our national motto, Satyameva Jayate? Obviously, these are questions that every well-meaning Indian citizen who cares for the country, who loves the country, is bound to ask. But unfortunately, going by the media that's active today, there is no indication that this is happening, and therefore, I thought it was worth our while to make a small beginning in this regard. And therefore, I invite you to spend a little time with me to examine this question. What is the connection between truth and politics? Now, if you go back to the original meaning of the idea of politics, and you go back to the ancient Greek context, particularly the context of Athens, politics is derived from the Greek word polis, which means city. And therefore, as the Greeks understood it, politics was the art of living together peaceably in a city, creating conditions necessary for the welfare of all members living in that city. So that is the basic meaning of politics. And the Greeks certainly believed that the practice of politics cannot be separated from a commitment to ethics. If I may give you an example, Aristotle, who set out to write a book on politics, actually ended up writing two books. And the first volume, the first of the two books, is titled Ethics, and only the second is titled Politics. Because the Greeks were absolutely clear, though we are confused about it, that sound politics that's conducive to human welfare cannot be practiced without an enduring foundation of ethics. So that is particularly clear. Now, if you go back to the ancient Indian context also, you will find the same thing, even though, of course, you have texts like that of Chanakya, where expediency takes the upper hand over political considerations. But by and large, the idea held in India that if a society is to endure, and if the health and wholeness of a society is to be ensured, a commitment to ethical principles is a must. And in fact, according to the Indian spiritual vision, when a society compromises its commitment to ethical principles, it suffers complete degeneration, anarchy prevails, it in fact threatens to endanger the entire social order, including the welfare of individual people. And God, therefore, is seriously concerned about it, and God intervenes to set matters right, to regain the lost foundations of Dharma, and he takes avatar. And the Hinduism talks about a series of 10 avatars. It's an open-ended series, which means that as and when the need arises, God will assume the next avatar. So from all this, it should be absolutely clear to us that the connection between politics and ethics cannot be taken lightly. If I may add a third illustration, Jesus was asked a question whether it was lawful to pay taxes to Caesar. His answer was, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. What we owe to Caesar is taxes. What we owe God is an inflexible, undiluted commitment to preserving the ethical foundations of human life, because without which human welfare is in serious jeopardy. So, in the thinking of Jesus, also, the connection between politics and ethics is absolutely clear and beyond any doubt. Now, let's come quickly to our context. Today, it is assumed that in order to win elections, any amount of falsehood can be uttered, any strategy of deviousness and dishonesty can be adopted. The only thing that matters is that you win elections. And after winning elections, what happens to the country or the people, etc., etc., it's a question that nobody asks because, after all, public opinion today is completely hijacked. But as ordinary people, as citizens who have to be concerned about their welfare and therefore the health of the society, we cannot but continue the old debate regarding the necessary connection between religion and politics. Now, let me take just one recent example, the Chhat Puja, which is ascribed by Hindus a great religious, spiritual significance. It's a worship of the sun god and Chatti Mata, who represents the creative energy. Therefore, obviously, it's a festival of great spiritual resonance, spiritual significance. It was announced, it was planned in advance that the Prime Minister of this country, Narendra Modi, would take a dip in Ganga on that auspicious day. But the water of the Ganga is polluted. The Prime Minister of the country, though a man of humble origin, cannot risk his health, and therefore a very interesting, clever arrangement was made. An artificial pond, underline the word artificial as against natural. An artificial pond was created using very pure water side by side with Yamuna, so that the Prime Minister may take a dip there and at the same time give out the version that on this very auspicious occasion for Hindus, the Prime Minister took a dip in the Ganga. Now, obviously, it's an arrangement of blatant falsehood. But that is supposed to have a great beneficial effect on the people, because the Prime Minister would then be seen as the protagonist of Hindu spirituality, Hindu piety. Unfortunately, Saurabh Bharadwaj of Aam Aadmi Party discovered this, and he spilled the beans, which created a lot of embarrassment for the Prime Minister, and therefore he refrained from taking a dip on Chhat Puja auspicious occasion in the Ganga and the Yamuna, the artificial Yamuna created for the Prime Minister. Now, if you are a devout Hindu, if you have an element of piety in you, if you care tuppence for religious truth, this idea of creating an alternate Yamuna, man-made artificial Yamuna, will seem completely repugnant to you. In fact, I saw a video in which a person was being interviewed by a journalist. And initially, he was expressing great appreciation for the Prime Minister, that he was keen to have the Chhat Puja day declared as a day of international significance under the auspices of the UNESCO. But when the same journalist revealed to that person that this was the arrangement that was being made, an artificial pond for the Prime Minister beside the Yamuna, and for everybody else, the highly polluted water of the Ganga, of the Yamuna, sorry, not the Yamuna, I apologize, polluted water of the Yamuna, he was so shocked that he was left speechless. So even today, the people, ordinary people, care for the truth, and they'll be seriously put off if they suspect that there is deviousness or dishonesty in all this. Now, in contrast, I would invite you to see a small clipping. Let me see if I can get it from the net, and then we can continue our thought further. Now, in this clipping, you will find Rahul Gandhi taking a dip. Now, you would have noticed for yourself how polluted the water is. Now, one strange thing in our country is that, irrespective of religious beliefs, whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, etc., every one of us believes that our rivers are holy. In fact, I believe water is holy because water is a life principle. If there is no water, there will be no life. So, obviously, it is sensible to attach great value to the element of water. According to the Hindu philosophy of life, water is one of the four elements that comprise life. Now, in spite of the holiness that is ascribed to water, as a people, we fail and fail miserably in keeping our rivers clean. At this time, my memory goes back to 1986, when I first visited Switzerland. There was a conference in Geneva, Switzerland, the 450th anniversary of Reformation in Geneva. And I was one of the two at that time deputed to represent the Indian churches at this World Conference. And I was put up with a local family in Geneva, about 15 miles away from the heart of the city, in a place called Satini, which is a village kind of an area, very beautiful place. Now, I lived with the family of Professor Bernard Shea, who was an engineer a professor of mechanical engineering in the University of Zurich. Professor Bernard Shea. He had three lovely sons. One day, his sons took me out on a picnic. There's a beautiful river not far from the city of Geneva. And when we reached there in the morning, the place was impeccably clean. But one of the three sons of Professor Bernard Shea noticed a plastic bag lying on the bank of the river. He shot for the plastic bag, picked it up, and immediately deposited it in the trash can. Just one plastic bag. And I asked him why. He said, it's unacceptable to us that our riverside can be unclean. And he was very surprised that anyone could come there and leave a plastic bag behind. I don't know when we will develop this degree of civic responsibility. That's only as an aside. So the fact remains that though we attach great religious significance and holiness to our rivers, we fail miserably in keeping them clean. The project of cleaning Ganga and restoring Ganga to some degree of acceptable purity has been on for a long time, and more than 30,000 crores of rupees has been spent on it. But Ganga gets only dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. And at the same time, it's our holiest river. So nothing more needs to be said about it. So, Rahul Gandhi, unfortunately, in striking contrast to the Prime Minister, takes a dip. He plunges into this dirty water and he mixes and mingles with very ordinary people. You can see them, very ordinary people. And he identifies himself with the ordinary people. Now, from 2004, particularly from 2014, Rahul Gandhi has been vilified, and in particular by Narendra Modi, as Prince Shahzada, Shahzada, a prince, and a man who enjoys dynastic privileges. And he reveled in contrasting himself with Rahul Gandhi as against the royal or aristocratic background of Rahul Gandhi. Narendra Modi came from the background of the lowliest of the low. His father was a chaiwala on a railway platform, etc., etc. And people were exhorted to punish those who inherited dynastic privileges without doing anything for it. But look at the situation. The very same person who claims to have originated from the humblest of social backgrounds today lives like the emperor. And the man who was accused of enjoying dynastic privileges has identified himself completely with the commoner. So who is a dynast and who is not? Now, this reality is never highlighted by the media for the simple reason that today media has sold its soul for a shoulder of mutton, to use an old expression. But the main point I want to share with you is as follows. Why is it that in spite of the fact that commitment, unwavering commitment to the eternal validity of truth is our national motto, today we care tuppence for truth? Truth is nowhere near our consideration when we devise our strategies. Truth plays no role in our public life, in our social life, in our commercial life, in our political life, and unfortunately also in governance. That's the reason why, as Rahul Gandhi said, and after Rahul Gandhi, Atal Bihari Vajpayee repeated, 1 rupee put into development shrinks to 15 paise. The reason is simple. It's lack of honesty, lack of commitment to truth. And we all expected that after globalization, corruption would be controlled and that we'll have a corruption-free society which would then set the ideal stage for the development of a country. And we know what will happen. The scale of corruption has multiplied several fold. And of course, of late, corruption has become the monopoly of people belong to a particular camp. I don't have to say which camp it is. So, truth. We have virtually renounced our commitment to truth. My question is why? Others will tell you that we have renounced our commitment to truth. You don't need me to say that because that's an obvious fact. My job, which will not be carried out by anyone else, is to explain to you why. Why does it happen? And why does it happen that in spite of the fact that this is such a manifest fact, and in spite of the fact that everybody knows that renouncing truth and embracing truth without embracing politics without principles is suicidal in effect, nobody minds it. Now, this is something I would request all of you to consider patiently. Now, in this, I would like to take us back to the old Athenian times. The reason why I'm taking you back in time and to a different context is otherwise I could be accused of any bias. I'm not going to refer to the teachings of Jesus Christ. I'm not going to refer to anything that has come up from the Indian context also. Let's distance ourselves from all this so that we can think objectively. The Greeks believed, and if you want a specific text, I'll refer you to Aristotle's writings on the soul, the anima, or on the soul. Very interesting word. Very, very interesting word. One of the most fascinating books you can ever read. The anima, D-E, next word anima, A-N-I-M-A, translated as on the soul, author is Aristotle. Now, there is an insight that Aristotle provides in that book, and that insight is that truth is a function of the soul. Please understand. Truth is a function of the soul. And therefore, if you and I do not take the soul dimension of our personality seriously, or again to use Aristotle's formulation, if in our personality it is not the soul but the body that is in control, there is no way we can ever adhere to the discipline of truth. So, what we have lost is the soul dimension of our individual and collective existence. But the greatest irony is this, that today it is the party that sponsors a theocratic India, Hindu Rashtra, a party that casts itself in the role of the custodian of Hinduism, and therefore, presumably, a party that's in charge of the resurgence of Hindu spirituality or Hindu religion, whatever, that is resorting to the strategies of falsehood. I'm not saying that other parties don't do it. That's not my argument at all. But no other party actually claims to be a custodian and protagonist of Hindu religion, Hindutva. Whether Hindutva is Hinduism is a different issue. I'm personally convinced that it is not, and every right-meaning Hindu will also believe likewise. But let's sidestep that issue for the time being. For all practical purposes, the Prime Minister today projects himself virtually as a pujari also. When the Ayodhya temple was dedicated, he was the main pujari. The Prime Minister as pujari. If Atal Bihari Vajpayee was Prime Minister as poet, Narendra Modi is Prime Minister as pujari. And during the last election, 2024 election, the most critical stage, we saw him going to the Vivekananda Memorial Rock and meditating there. So he is, for all practical purposes, an ascetic in public life. Is a pujari when it comes to dedicating temples. I have no quarrels with any of these things. But my only contention is that if you really mean what you say, then you have to show a perceptible, credible commitment to truth. Because if there is a soul dimension active in you, active in the ideology you propound, active in the political agenda you preside over, active in the governance that you practice, then you have to have a clear, convincing, and unwavering commitment to truth. Whereas unfortunately, it's exactly the opposite. It's not what I'm saying, this is what everybody is talking about. And not only that, the idea of capturing various institutions that pertain to democratic governance, including the Election Commission of India. All these projects are constructed on falsehood, on pretenses. If you ask the people concerned, are these institutions autonomous? Yes, of course they are autonomous. Are they influenced? No, they are not influenced. Is any attempt being made to influence them? Not at all. So nobody is free to tell the truth. At the same time, if the Supreme Court of India gives a verdict that is not to the liking of the BJP, then you will see the BJP cyber gundas extremely active right away. So we are living in a quagmire of falsehood. We are encircled by a tissue of falsehood. Now, this is because, and this is my main argument, this is because we have completely renounced the soul dimension of our life. Now, let us take one final look at Narendra Modi's claim that he is the avatar of the Paramatma. That is not a person, and it's his own claim. It's not something that anyone else accuses, his own claim, which we have to take seriously. So if he claims to be a manifestation or a special representative of the Paramatma, a person not of biological origin, then surely he is bound to be the representative, the manifestation of the Paramatma, and the most authentic, the essence of the Paramatma is truth. God is truth. In Hinduism, more than any other religion, God is understood as truth. So on the one hand, you claim to be the manifestation of the Paramatma, and therefore theoretically bound to be totally and unwaveringly, heroically committed to the truth. On the other hand, when it comes to political expediency, you have absolutely no qualms in making short work of truth, resorting to any kind of falsehood. Now, this is extremely unnerving, extremely worrisome. Unfortunately, the common man does not have the ability to piece together various evidence and understand the terrible mess, the terrible ethical mess we are in. I can only say this much from hindsight regarding history, that no society, absolutely no society in history, in the last 5,000 years of history at least, that has handed over itself to moral anarchy has ever had a healthy present and a bright future. So we're actually cutting the branch on which we are sitting. And all this great talk about taking India to the height of development, etc., I predict will come to naught, because the foundation, the ethical foundation necessary for it doesn't exist. You ask any economist worth his hire, he will tell you, if India were not corrupt, or as corrupt as we were, and we have been, India would have been developed 5 times more than it is today from the time of independence. In other words, the evil of corruption has cost us a great deal already. What is corruption? Corruption is dishonesty in deed. What are lies? Dishonesty in word. And do you think that a person or people who can be very easily dishonest in their words will totally refrain from dishonesty in deeds? You think there can be a complete contradiction between words and deeds in the same human being? No. As you are, so you speak. You may very cleverly cover up your corruption. That's a different matter. But if you're corrupt in your words, you're also corrupt in your deeds. This much common sense everybody should have. So I say this as someone who loves this country, who believes in the future of India. Therefore, I speak in pain. I hesitated for at least a whole week before doing this video. It's not an easy thing to do. But I felt that I'd be failing in my duty, failing in my patriotism, failing in my love for the country, particularly love for the people and their welfare, if I do not share with people, a few people who care to listen to me, the insights that I have. Please understand, the key to all that I have said is this. Truth is a function of the soul. It is not a function of the body. It is not even a function of the mind. The mind can be devious. The mind plays many games. In fact, there is a book of that title, which is very interesting. The games that the mind plays. There is a book. Truth, the fountainhead of truth is the soul. And anyone who shortchanges truth and resorts to the advantages of falsehood has renounced the soul. It's a soulless person. And such a person cannot practice politics with principles. And as Gandhi said, and I don't think anyone can ever question it, politics without principles is downright evil, and no good can come out of it. I repeat, politics without principles is downright evil, and no good, absolutely no good, will ever come out of it. Jai Hind.